Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in and checking out this video. We're here at our Terasaki studio in Nihonbashi, Tokyo, where today we're going to be interviewing Tonari, one of our workplace technology partners, and Ben Lovell, our workplace technology consultant, and Alisaun Fukugaki will tell you more about it. Thanks.
So I'm here with Alisaun Fukugaki from Tonari. Hi Alisaun, thanks for being here.
Hey Ben, thanks for having me.
Good. Okay, why don't we start simply, what is Tonari?
Sure, yeah, happy to. So Tonari is, it's a service, it's an experience. We like to avoid calling it a technology or like a hardware or a software necessarily, because what we're trying to do is we connect spaces. So you take a distant space, let's say in Tokyo, and a distant space in Singapore, or it could even be somewhere in Japan, but we take those spaces and through Tonari, we merge them into one. I think that makes a very different experience from what we tend to know. I think people do tend to associate it with certain experiences that they've already had, with like video calls and things like that. But what we're offering is completely different, and there are just like a number of reasons for why that is.
Okay, so what problems does it solve perhaps?
So I think we are increasingly distributed in the workforce. There are a lot of global enterprises. There are a lot of, let's say, schools where, especially in Japan, where you're seeing population decline. You don't have enough some classes don't have enough classmates. You're seeing, again, population decline. A lot of hospitals are, falling into disuse and disrepair. There's just a lot of places where if you actually have more connection, it will free people up to actually live and work where they want to. So the problem that Tonari is fundamentally trying to solve is allowing for people to live and work where they want to be. And that's a very, very general thing, but we can go into more detail on that. Our first market, or where we're trying to hit first, is the workplace. And a lot of the problems that we're seeing is, for example, you have a headquarters in, let's say, Tokyo, but you're trying to hire or you're trying to grow more rapidly in Osaka or something like that. When you have this new team that you're trying to build, how do you communicate with them? How do you stay in sync with them? You tend to actually get a lot of disconnect by being in separate places. And so what Tonari tries to do is we merge those two places together so that it's almost like you're just in the same office.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can you describe that experience?
Yeah, of course. So actually, we as a company, Tonari is actually distributed across our office in Yoyogi Hachiman and also our office in Hayama in Kanagawa Prefecture. Yes. And we have this small office in Hayama. It has maybe myself and the co-founders and one of our admin team. We all moved out to Hayama in the midst of the pandemic, and we are connected to our Tokyo office. And so for someone and I'm actually the biggest user of Tonari in some regards, because I'm always in the Hayama office and I'm doing sales. So I am meeting with my team members. So each day when I come into the office, I'm meeting with my team members every day. I'm syncing with them. I'm spending time with them. I'm catching up and seeing what's happening. I'm meeting with clients who come into our office. I'm doing demos.
I think that's how we first met.
Exactly. So I'm doing demos for potential customers, potential connectors like yourselves, through Tonari without having to leave Hayama. And for me, that frees up so much of my time and my capacity, and allows me to live this much better life, because I have 2 kids. They're boys. They have a lot of energy. It's been my dream to live outside of the city and give them the space that they need. And I think having Tonari has actually really enabled me to live this sort of life.
No, I think so. I think you've touched on some interesting things that people have had experience with these similar technologies, of course, video conferencing and so on, and distributed work and these kind of concepts. But how do you actually use Tonari?
Okay, so Tonari is about connected spaces. And so I guess the use is, it really depends. The way that we use Tonari is it's always on. So it's connected, right? And so you're not turning it on and off because you have a meeting per se. You can obviously use Tonari for meetings, but it's just always on, feeling presence of one another. And you can see each other and you can see eye to eye. The way that we've actually set Tonari up is we have the screen and we have the camera, actually a very small camera, embedded in the middle of that screen, and that allows you to see eye to eye. We built the software from scratch, and that means we had to actually do that, because when you want the sort of super low latency and the smoothness that you want, that we want to achieve like this more real life feeling, we ended up having to build our own software. So our software is completely built on Rust, which is like the coding language that we use. But we've managed to achieve under 150 milliseconds. It's actually running under 120 milliseconds now, which is a very important number, because basically when you go over 150 milliseconds, people start to notice the lag, the latency. A typical video conferencing call typically has around 3 to 5 times that latency. And what you end up having to do with that is a lot of the body language, the nuance, or like what you want to nod or laugh at a joke, or just like express interest without verbally saying it. You miss a lot of those cues when it is like 1 step or 2 steps behind. You kind of end up feeling or looking a little slow. And those perceptions matter over like a very long time. And so with Tonari, we really wanted to have this very real life, very immersive experience. In order to do that, we had to end up building the software from scratch.
Yeah, sure. I think people are obviously very experienced now with Zoom and Teams and those kind of video conferencing experiences, even if they're not familiar with the in-office video conferencing experiences. But when we first met over Tonari, I found it very immersive, very quickly, and within, well, if we talk for 30 minutes or so then, I mean, within 3-5 minutes, I felt we were very close to each other, communicating very, very naturally, and perhaps communicating in quite a different way to we'd normally communicate over a screen, over a phone, over a PC.
I think in this regard, size really does matter, because when you can get to the size that Tonari is, we're showing basically floor to ceiling, you can really see the person in their entirety, meaning you can see how tall they are, what sort of shoes they wear, what kind of socks they're wearing. It tells so much about that person, and you get to know them. And when you get to that size, you can also start to mimic that person, right? And like mimicry is really important in communication, because it shows I'm empathizing with you, it has so much to do with like the kind of body language, and all of that is missing when you're literally just like a head in the box.
Absolutely. Yeah, the eye contact, but also the full body language. So particularly as our experience was for a first time meeting, I think that was probably the most interesting or most exciting part of the experience.
Yeah. And I think that immediacy or like that intimacy that you get from like meeting people through Tonari is like really great. I think the other thing is like you see so much more than just like the person there. You can also kind of see what's around you as well. So it gives you a lot more context in the conversation. Like if I see it's like really busy, right, and there's like something always like something going on, I can feel that through Tonari. I can feel that without physically being there. So Tonari is our version of like teleportation, really.
Sure. I think this is a hot topic though, isn't it? That you're not necessarily getting cues from the whole room anymore. Everyone's talking to these talking heads, and that's fine. But it's it's a different kind of experience completely.
It's a very different need. I think what Tonari tries to do is like we're trying to fill the gap in distant communication, and the gaps really are what you can't see, what you can't hear. When you're in like the remote office, it becomes very pronounced. Like for me, I would have no reason necessarily to go into the Hayama office if we didn't have Tonari, because it's just a small space. The number of people that I can actually interact with, like why would I go into the office just to take a bunch of video calls? I can just work from home. But the value or the benefit that I get because we have Tonari connecting Hayama and Yoyogi is the mood, the energy, the vibrancy, the access to people and information. And all of that is true of what the value of the office is, the physical office.
Yes, that's right. Maybe we'll touch on that in a minute as well. So at the moment, what kind of customers are using Tonari?
So we have currently 9 installations, and 8 of them are in Japan, and then we actually have 1 connecting Japan to Singapore. So we do have 1 international installation, and we are hoping to, now that COVID is behind us, we are hoping to do a lot more. Right now, our customers are mainly like workplace focused, and so to name a few, we have Free, the accounting software company. We have Levanest. We also have an installation within Japan Rail East, or East Japan Rail, I should say. We're also inside Itochu Techno Solutions, which is the big SIer.
Yep.
Let's see, we also have tonari installed between Sompo Japan's last mile sales, sales offices. And then our longest running company is actually Frontier Consulting, which is an office design company. They are connecting their Tokyo headquarters and their Osaka office.
Interesting. Good. So I've tried it and I've enjoyed it, and I talk about it with our clients. Where can people try it if they're interested?
So right now we're actually limited to our office/demo space, as I was explaining, between Yogi and Hayama, but we do hope to have more semi-public or more public installations.
So I'm very interested in future of work, and what that means.
We all?
And Vega is a technology solutions provider, I would say, in that we're providing services, consulting, technical solutions, introducing people to the new technology. And I think my stance on it is I'm very interested how it's not necessarily technology that solves the problem. It's a variety of solutions. It's processes, it's people, it's psychology, and it's technology, which we're all interested in, that pulls things together. You touched on something that's very interesting about the cues, that you feel like you're with somebody because you can see their full body, even their shoes and socks and whatever, and you feel like they're much closer. So it's a lot more intimate. And of course, when we talk about other technologies, even the video conferencing technologies, where you get pulled out of that immersion, because the cues are coming from somewhere else, distractions and so on. And I'm very interested, the way that's going. On top of that, of course, there's social change where people are working from anywhere. People are looking at different approaches to work. But I don't think it's just about technology. So the way you talk about tonari and how people connect, I think is quite exciting. If I think about that being the future of work, how do we incorporate all these things? How are we aware of all these aspects? I think tonari fits into that very nicely, and I think there's other technologies out there as well. A lot of technologies, a lot of kind of existing manufacturers doing interesting work with acoustics, for example, with interesting work with spaces and how to kind of reorganize spaces and make them be more comfortable, more proactive, more productive rather, spaces to work in. But I guess that's how I see the future of work, and what Vega's place might be there. How about for tonari? I mean, in terms of future of work, is it a workplace technology?
I think it definitely is, but I guess it's a solution for many areas, I think, and workplace is one of those areas where we see a lot of leverage, where we have leverage, I should say. I think the aspiration is for tonari is, we want to enable people to be able to live and work from wherever they want to be. And so I think that what we see is when we can allow more people to live basically what I'm doing, where you can have these smaller offices, right? And you don't have to build a huge headquarters in the middle of the city where it's just super expensive, and it's expensive to move, it's expensive to rent, it's expensive to do everything. We see flexibility as being like the kind of key word here, where you can have these smaller distributed offices in places where people actually want to live. So like, let's say like Karuizawa, or, somewhere in Australia or Okinawa, or, people in different life stages want to be in different places. Sometimes you want to be near where you grew up. Sometimes you want to be, in the big city where there are a lot of different opportunities. Sometimes, when you have kids, you end up wanting to be in somewhere that's a bit more suburban. But if you can meet employees, if employers can meet their employees, in where that life stage, take them wherever they want to be by opening up those small offices and giving them the chance to still have the same sort of opportunity as they would if they're in the head office.
Exactly.
That's the sort of aspiration or goal that we're trying to get to when it comes to workplace.
Yeah, very good. Have you seen any other technologies or new processes, new ideas that are kind of changing the way we work that you like, or that you've tried or appreciated?
I mean, I definitely am a fan of I'm a huge fan of this kind of new paradigm of what we're calling hybrid work now. And I think we do have to be very careful about that. I'm someone who gets a lot of energy by being with my team in person, basically pretty much in person or through tonari, which I kind of count of as being in person. But I think that's really time spent with teams, especially when you're creating and doing a lot of new things, is so important. But I also think that having the focus time, being able to have the flexibility of working from home or working from Nozawa Onsen because you're skiing, or that's also really important too. And being able to have that sort of balance and flexibility with the ability to sync and energize and motivate each other is really, really important. So I think I really am enjoying the way that we're starting to globally rethink the way that we work. I do think that obviously needs to be really balanced and really well thought out, because again, I'm not pro fully remote either. So, but I think that discussion or that conversation that's been spurred by COVID has actually been a very, very great wake-up call. And yeah, it's changing the way that we've been doing something. The whole kind of 9 to 5 or 12 to 12 I don't know 7 to 7 or whatever 5 days a week thing is being completely reimagined, and that's been a really interesting process to see.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, the activity-based working is very interesting. It's almost more interesting, not the technology, but that allows us to do that maybe, but the conversation around it, where people are becoming aware of the different types of activities they engage in. They don't necessarily realize that work is sometimes concentrating, work is sometimes teamwork, sometimes it's collaboration, sometimes it's just social, and team building and so on. So the fact that we have a language now behind it, or a way of thinking.
Developing a language.
Developing a language, sure. And I think bringing in kind of ideas that people have been talking about for a long time, but maybe from disparate areas, and they're kind of pulling them together from industrial psychology or from sports or, from education, and bring them into a way of working. It's quite exciting.
And I guess, I would just like to ask you, as someone who does see a lot of different technologies, what's exciting or what's interesting out there for you?
Yeah, I think, from the AV world, a lot of what we do is kind of behind the scenes. And I think in the future, we will have some of these showcase technologies, and I think people will enjoy coming together for events and activities, and also some specialist activities that they maybe hadn't been able to do either together before so easily, or even remotely before so easily. But I think a lot of the technology will be kind of behind the scenes still. And I think it will be, as I said, things about acoustics, things about the actual planning. And I think you touched on it before about flexibility, that the spaces will be changing all the time, and if you only come into work maybe once a month, you might find that when you come in the summer, the office looks like this, but when you come back it looks like something else. But that office still needs to function as well as it always has, or if not better, or better probably, each time it changes, and then there'll be learnings from each change.
Yeah, that's another thing I think. As we reimagine, or as we think about different types of working and encouraging people to come into the office, turning the office into an attractor, that's another really cool idea or concept. It's not, I think people are now having to reimagine what's the value of the office. Obviously it's desks, but you can have a desk at home, so what's the real value? And so turning it into these social spaces, and adding those things like the seasonality, or maybe it's a snack bar, or a barista is there serving really nice coffee. The kind of added benefits of coming into the office to turn it into that collision space for the sort of creative ideas and the sort of new and important work that needs to be done. I think that's another really cool change that's been spurred by what's happened with the pandemic.
That's right. Yeah. Very good. Well, thanks, Alison.
Yeah, you're very welcome.
Yeah, good to connect in person.
Likewise. Thanks.
Thanks for watching that video, and if you'd like to get in touch, please check out the links on the screen. See you on the next one.